Good morning, everybody. I would like to start this webinar on the European Innovation Council Accelerator instrument. My name is Barbara Spanò, and I'm here today with some experts from EISMEA, that is the agency of the European Commission dealing with the European Innovation Council. And then we have a case from a company, and then a person that works from the investment side. And just a few housekeeping rules before we move on with the webinar. First, the webinar will be recorded, and the recorded will be shared after the webinar on the website of the ministry. Your microphones are mute and your cameras are off as participants. I would like now to ask all the panelists to switch on their cameras so that you can see who are them and when they will also speak. I will also ask you to use the Q&A function to ask a question. We have allocated some time for a question and answer session during the webinar. And you will also be able to ask a question to Tatiana and Federico after their presentation. If you have technical issues or comments, you are welcome to write them in the chat. And my colleague Emma, that is here close to me, will try to address them during the webinar. So, about myself, I am the Danish National Contact Point and Program Committee Delegate for the European Innovation Council. I focus mainly on the European Innovation Council Accelerator, and I also work with legal and financial issues within the framework program. I work together with a colleague, Emma Winter. She's also National Contact Point and Program Committee Delegate for the European Innovation Council, and her focus is Pathfinder and Transition, and she also covers Cluster 1 Health. The agenda for the day, after this very short intro from my side, and then a colleague of mine, Siri Benson, that is an EU consultant for the Southern Denmark European Office, we will move to a presentation on the meaning of deep tech with Andreas Lindbergs, that is head of section for EC challenge-based accelerator at EISMEA. Then Diana Rucinski will cover the part related to the investment and investors within the European Innovation Council. She's investment advisor at EISMEA. I will ask you to ask questions to Diana and Andreas in the Q&A session. Diana and Andreas, they have a previous arrangement, so they will have to leave the meeting after the Q&A. So think about the question to address for them in advance so that they can take them at that point. Then we will continue the presentation with Tatiana. She will cover the interview phase. She is EC Accelerator jury and managing partner for Fluent Digital Capital, and she's also European Innovation Council ambassador. Then we have a case with us, a successful company that got an EC Accelerator, and it is Federico Puente-Spell from Seaborg, and then we will close the webinar. In the first version of the agenda that I shared with you, there was another case, but they had to cancel their participation yesterday. So let's see if we have some flexibility for the second half of the meeting in case there are questions or interesting discussion. Otherwise, we will end up the meeting a little bit in advance. So now I leave the floor to Siri, that works at the Southern Denmark EU office. And I forgot to say that before this webinar has been organized by the Ministry of Higher Education and Science in Denmark, together with the Danish EU regional office. But Siri, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. So yeah, my name is Siri. I work with the South Denmark European Office. A bit more on that in a second. So the objective of this webinar is, of course, to support you to get success with the EIC Accelerator. But since we can't cover everything in a webinar, it's also a good opportunity for us to remind you where you can get some more help with the EIC as well as other EU funding. So the first message is do reach out to the business support community. We're here to help. And I think no matter what experience you have, you are likely to need some help along the way, and we're there for that. So start with the part of the business support community you're already in contact with. If you're in contact with the Enterprise Europe network, they can help you take the first steps to get smarter. If you're in contact with the business hubs locally in Danish erhvervshuse, then use them to maybe take the first steps. If you're a startup or a spin out at a university, then your likely first point of contact will be the research support at the universities that are also equipped to help you with the EIC. And if you haven't already been in contact with your regional EU office, then of course I'm here to tell you to please reach out to us. So there are 4. You can stay on the first slide. Yeah, there are 4 regional EU offices in Denmark, covering all 5 Danish regions. There are 4 offices because the Greater Copenhagen EU office covers both Capital Region and Zealand. And these offices are owned and financed by the regions and the municipalities in each region. And we're here to help organizations in Denmark with EU funding for innovation projects. So we are a publicly funded offer for everyone in Denmark that has an interest in EU projects. And we work with all types of organizations, so that can be public utility companies, schools, hospitals, municipalities, and of course, private companies. That's the focus today. We have offices in Brussels as well as colleagues stationed at home in Denmark. And all 4 of the regional offices have colleagues, employees that are specialized in the programs that are relevant for private companies. So as well as colleagues at the other offices, we work almost exclusively with private companies. So we know the programs that are relevant for you. Go ahead and change slide. So we are here because the EU actually has a really decent, large budget for research and innovation. And that's a budget that's characterized in general by being competition. So this money is being offered through open competitive calls. There are no country envelopes. So if we, as in we in companies in Denmark, don't apply for this funding, then other companies in Austria or Estonia or elsewhere with very good projects will get funded instead. So it's of course our role to make sure that the companies in Denmark know that the opportunity is there and to help you in the process of application. And we try to be there from the beginning to the end to help on the sidelines. If we're in contact with companies that are interested in the EIC Accelerator, or if we find that maybe that is something they should be interested in, we spend a lot of time in the screening process. So to make sure that there is in fact a good match between the company and the project and the EIC Accelerator. The Accelerator is a very attractive program, but it's also a very competitive program. It has a very broad scope in the sense that all sectors can be relevant, but it also has a narrow scope in the sense that that the target group of companies that actually have a good shot of getting funded is relatively narrow. So it's really important to make sure that there is a good fit between the company and the program. So we spend a lot of time in that phase. And if there isn't a good fit, then we're also there to try and help the company find other sources of funding in other EU programs, or maybe to make clear that there isn't a good match and that it's better to spend resources on something else. If there is a good fit with the EIC Accelerator, then we are a friend in the application process, so we can help on technical questions and feedback, but of course without writing any part of the application. So that's the job for the companies themselves, or if they hire private consultants. There are a lot of competent consultants working in this area as well. So you can go ahead and change slide. The last slide is just contact details at the 4 offices of the colleagues that work with the companies. So the message here is just if you are looking at the EXE Accelerator and you haven't been in contact with us yet, please do reach out to whoever is on this list from your region. We're very happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Siri. Now, just moving on, some of you have already basic knowledge on the European Innovation Council and also on the Accelerator program. Many of you come yourself from companies that have already applied, maybe for step 1, or are in the process to apply already for step 2. But as you have probably seen, and then Andreas will also cover a little bit more in detail that part, the European Innovation Council Accelerator instrument is a support for company, and it is especially some SME, but also including startup. And here the focus is to scale up high impact innovation with the potential to create new markets or disrupting existing ones. What it is special with the Accelerator instrument is the focus that it has on deep tech. And here we have decided for today to dig in about what it is meant by deep tech. And the reason why we decided to do so is that there are several definitions of deep tech, and sometimes the definition of deep tech is also different from area to area. And it is a question that us as national contact point, we get a lot from company, try to assess if they really work as a deep tech and if what they do could be relevant for this program, if it is deep tech enough. The other part that we will also cover both with Diana and then with Tatiana is the aspect related with the funding. In the Horizon Europe program, but also in the previous one, most of the funding is given as a grant. So you write an application, you put a budget in the application, and then the European Commission will give you a grant according to the cost that you have and the activities that you have planned. The logic behind the Accelerator is quite different when we go to the funding aspect, because besides the possibility of having a grant, you can also have other kind of investment possibility. And here the dialogue with investor becomes very important for you, and also the maturity and the level of your company or a startup. There are several things that you need to take into consideration in advance. So we have decided to cover this with Diana and then with Tatiana, because if everything goes fine after step 1, you move to step 2, and then you go to the interview, and there you will have also to deal with the investment aspect and try to be ready. So these are like the 3 elements that we have decided to have for this webinar, because they are the ones that have proven to be most problematic or challenging for the applicants. So here, the last slides for this intro part, this is just an overview. It is in the work program for the European Innovation Council Accelerator with all the deadline for the 3 instruments that the European Innovation Council cover. So as I said at the starting, we have Pathfinder and Transition. It's my colleague Emma that is responsible for that, and then Accelerator. And the next cutoff for step 2 is in June. And then for 2023, there is one in October, and then the work program is yearly based, so there will come new deadlines for 2024. But these were the final words from my side, and now I will ask Andreas to take the floor. I stop sharing my slides, and then Andreas, you can share your slides. Thank you. And it is in slide mode, so you can start when you are ready. Andreas, we cannot hear you. It seems you are muted.
Okay, sorry. I was muted. All these screens and all these
now
panels.
we can hear you, please.
Now it's better. Okay.
Yeah.
So just I was saying that I'm very happy to be here with you, and I would like to thank you for the invitation. When you asked me to present what is deep tech, for me it was very surprising question, because for me deep tech it's obvious because I'm an engineer, because I'm practicing this for decades. In the Commission, it is something very natural, but I realize that there are many definitions and many different interpretations, I would say, from on the web, but also from different documents that we have at European level or worldwide. So it is a very, very, let's say, sound, pertinent question. And I would try to put some lights on this deep tech and what we are looking for in the accelerator. So as you mentioned, and as everybody knows, the EIC is a huge program. It is the third pillar of Horizon Europe, and it includes a funding budget of 10 billion euros for the period 21-27. It targets mainly innovation, different parts of innovation, covers the value chain of technological, let's say, development from low technological readiness level from 1 to 4, which is addressed by Pathfinder. So this is mainly proof of concept and development of technologies and validation at laboratory level. It addresses consortia and grants. The second part in this continuum, let's say, of innovation and deep tech development is the transition, where we try to support consortia, but also companies, to transfer technology, so from lab to the real environment. So here we speak about TRL 3 to 6. And then, so we help companies to build a market, let's say, business visibility, and to bridge between technology and the market. And then we come to the accelerator, where really we want to support the deep tech companies, not only to validate their technology in real environment. So we are addressing here calls for proposals starting at TRL 5 or 6, but the minimum is TRL 5, and reaching very high TRL 8, but also TRL 9, where we are supporting the company through investment. So we have one part which is TRL 5 to 8 with a grant up to 2.5 million, and for TRL 9 we support with investment up to 15 million euros. So here we have the first, let's say, definitions of what is the accelerator, what are the companies that we're looking for. So these are startups and SMEs seeking to scale up. This is very important, because accelerator does not support companies who do not have the ambition or the means to scale up. So we don't support startups remaining startups. This is not our target. So high impact innovation in order to create new markets or to disrupt existing ones. So it is mainly focusing on deep tech. So what is here deep tech? Is it innovation built on scientific or technological breakthroughs? We'll see what is a breakthrough. We'll see how we evaluate breakthrough in the evaluation. So here companies usually, because they develop very disruptive, very intensive from resources, from financial resources as well, very demanding technology. So we speak about significant funding for a long time period, which is also too risky for private investors to invest alone. So what we do is we try to jump into this investment, to the risk, and to attract other investors. So it is a unique combination of grant, investment, as I mentioned, but it's also a combination of business acceleration services, where we provide services of coaching, access to market, and partners. For the 2023, Barbara, you mentioned accelerator is 1.13 billion euros. Apply anytime. So this is for short applications. I will explain it a bit more. And cutoffs for full applications in January has passed, in March has passed. The next one is 7th of June, and the last one of the year is 4th of October. This is the whole package of documentation that where you can find for 2023 all the information concerning the work program, the question and answers guide for applicants, the EIC challenges for this year that you mentioned, Barbara, or your colleague, I don't remember. Apologies that we have an open call, so all topics are, let's say, can be submitted, but also we have specific calls like 7 challenges that you can see here listed in this slide. Let's go very briefly on the evaluation. We have evaluation in 3 steps. So short proposal to be submitted at any moment. You answer some questions about ideation, what is your idea, about development, how you develop your idea, what is the market, etc. And then the third part is some questions you answer on the platform about how to go to the market, what is the team, what are the risks, etc. So 10 slides, 3 minutes of pitch, and then you submit your idea, which is evaluated by 4 experts. Then if you get 2 goes at least, you get the green light, let's say, to go to the full proposal submission, where you can be supported by a coach from the Business Acceleration Services and submit your full proposal, which is evaluated by 3 experts. Then if you get 3 goes, you come to the interview where you answer questions from the juries, from the jury members. What I would like to say here is, instead of going directly through definitions of deep tech, I thought it was more useful for you to see how we evaluate deep tech and how we evaluate innovation. And mainly we evaluate this in the criterion excellence. So breakthrough and market creation, and then I will explain it a bit more. We have 3 criteria for the evaluation, for the short proposals evaluation, but also for the full proposals evaluation: excellence, impact, and level of risk, implementation, and need for union support. So here what is important is to understand what we're looking for in terms of excellence in technology, excellence in the idea, excellence in the, let's say, in the development. So breakthrough and market creating nature. So the question is, does the innovation have a high degree of novelty? This is very important, degree of novelty, compared to existing product, to existing services and business models, with the potential to create or significantly transform markets. So it is novelty in technology with combination of transforming or creating new markets, very important. So another, I would say, component of the excellence that you need to pay attention is technological feasibility. I will explain it a bit more here. So does the innovation have a high degree of novelty compared to existing? What does it mean? Why is the innovation novel compared to the existing solution? So you need to write in your proposal why your idea is better than the other. So you will need to compare somehow. Will it be successful in creating the new markets, as we said? Is it a high risk, a high potential innovation idea that nobody else has before? Is it better or significantly different to any alternative? Does it have a high degree of novelty coming with a high chance of success? Of course, we know that this is all risky, but we need to mention what are the let's say, the success criteria for your new idea. So here, all these questions: is it a game-changing or breakthrough innovation? All these questions come to answer to the definition of what is deep tech and what is the degree of novelty. And of course, you have to describe the state of the art, so what exists already in terms of products, in terms of developments as well, and then to bring your own idea and to say, my idea is better for this and this reason. And then the time also, is the time right? This is also a very important question. When we come to the second part of the innovation, it has to do with technological readiness level. Is the innovation based on a technology or technologies that have been adequately assessed, at least in a laboratory environment, so TRL4 at least, of course, but finished TRL4, and relevant environments to characterize the potential and assess the level of risks. So here, at least 5. So it means that have you already started testing and validating this technology in real environment? It means with real samples. If it is green, with a real, let's say, outside the lab, in the real place of where your solution will operate. So this is very important for the accelerator to start with a technology that has been validated and is ongoing to be demonstrated in real environment. So you see here all of the questions is sufficiently justify their readiness, because the experts will see if your technology is at the level that we're looking for? Is there a clear plan for future technological development needed to deploy, and have the TRL risks been clearly defined and plan to mitigate them presented? So these are the questions, and then we'll have other questions about AI-based system, if the technology is secure, is safe and responsible, etc. But this is, I think, this is what I would like to just to highlight from the evaluation of the criterion excellence in terms of novelty and in terms of how the technology should be mature enough to enter into the pipeline of the accelerator. So the meaning of deep tech on the EIC program, now I'm coming to the definitions, is that the accelerator is focusing in particular on innovations built on scientific discovery or technological breakthroughs. We don't speak about any type of innovation. We speak about this type of innovations built on these technologies, and where significant funding is needed over a long time period before returns can be generated. This is what we call patient capital, but Diana will explain better in the next presentation. So breakthrough technologies and game-changing innovations. This is what we're looking for. Another definition that we can find here and there is that the technology is based on cutting-edge scientific advances, which is always true, and discoveries, and is characterized by the need to stay at the technological forefront by constant interaction with new ideas and results from the lab. This is also true. It's another way to express this type of very disruptive technologies. So it is distinct from high-tech, because high-tech is only R&D intensity. Here we speak about technology that is really disruptive, but also is associated with innovation and market, let's say, impact. Also, I would like to highlight that the disruptive and versus incremental is very important. It is also a matter of interpretation. Incremental it means basically that you have a product that, and you want to change few things in the product that you have already, so with small changes, and this is not what we're looking for. This is not disruptive. This is incremental, small changes on an existing product. We want something really new, which goes to a really other level of, let's say, technological development and innovation, where you will need, of course, in a company, when you have something new, completely new, you need to apply incremental techniques to reach the new level of innovation. But we want to see in the proposal that there is a gap in the technological innovation, and not only incremental, so small steps. Here another definition, which is very important because it is part of the new European Innovation Agenda that the Commission has published last year. It is new wave of innovation is on the way, okay? Deep tech innovation, which is rooted in cutting-edge science, again, the same definition as before, science, technology, and engineering, often combining in the physical, biological, and digital spheres, often combined, okay, this is also applicable, it is often combined, it's not only, and with the potential to deliver transformative solutions in the face of global challenges. Of course, what I have not mentioned until now, it is all these technological innovation, breakthrough, and developments are done in order to have an impact in the society. So these global challenges, the society, lifestyle, economy, climate are absolutely as part of the whole package of deep tech and really disruptive innovations. And maybe Barbara knows that it will be very soon published, this feasibility study on the European scoreboard, when we see really that this study make a very important, let's say, case of the scoreboard of innovation and startup ecosystem, where we find many definitions of what is a startup, what is a unicorn, what is the ecosystem of startups, etc. And so there is no one definition. And this study really brings together all the definitions and try to find out a standard definition or let's say commonality among all these definitions. Is not something, is not mathematics. This is what I would say, but we all understand more or less. So the main characteristics of deep tech companies I mentioned, it is radically new. It is highly risky, non-bankable ideas, as I mentioned, because if a company can find investment from other means, we will not jump in because it means it's not high risk. We come where there is a need for investment on high risk ideas and with potential to scale up. I think Denmark is performing very well in our program. We have funded until now in the pilot and in the Horizon Europe something like 37 companies with 75 million for grant, 75 million for equity. I just listed here an example of some of these disruptive ideas where companies receive funding from us in different areas of activities, in the green, plastic recycling, in new solutions for X-rays, I mean, diagnostics, chips, insulin, you see first universal and price neutral insulin pen, therapeutic proteins to treat pain, and artificial intelligence. So we speak here about hardware and software because we can have disruptive innovation in both sides. And this is my last slide. I would like just to inform, and you can read this impact report where we bring together all the, let's say, developments and companies that we supported from 14 to 21. So from a long time ago when the SME program has started until 21 with the beginning of Horizon Europe. And you see all the areas, all the companies, all the funding that we supported the companies with. So it was a pleasure to be with you, and I hope that by the end, after your question and answer, you will have a better idea of what we support in terms of deep tech companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. At least for me, it was very interesting, and also to hear from you how you define deep tech, also the aspect that you need to be timely when you write a project, and also the concept of non-bankability. But for the participant, as I said before, just write your question in the question and answer section, and then we will take them up after Diana. But then I would ask you, Andreas, if you could stop sharing your presentation, and then Diana, you can get the floor and then start sharing your presentation.
Okay, I'm trying because of my many windows here to stop the presentation. Okay.
Maybe in the meantime, I can briefly introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm Diana Rucinski. I work with Andreas on the Executive Agency for EIC and SMEs in the European Innovation Council in the EIC accelerator sector. And I work as an investment advisor, working especially on investor outreach and supporting the companies to find investors, because as you will see, not all the companies have the investors, not all the companies are supposed to have the investors at the moment of the application. And I think this is one of the points that sometimes is being misunderstood, that companies believe that they need to have already the investors. No, I mean, it's they should have interest from the investors, but not necessarily to have the investors already. But I will present a bit. I will start to present. I will speak about this during my presentation. I will see if I can.
Yeah, I was thinking to say, Diana, maybe you can stop Andreas' presentation while sharing your screen.
No, unfortunately, I cannot stop. Maybe you as admin, but.
Okay. Okay, just let's see. Diana, I stopped Andreas' presentation, so you should be able to share your own.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
And again, happy to be here. Okay, so I will. I'm sharing my presentation. Give me 1 second to put it in slide mode, and also to hide the different screens. Can you see it now?
Yes, at least on my screen there is this gray box. Yes, that is appearing. It's just a smaller one as we had before on the left side. That's also gone. So that's perfect.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana.
Okay, so just continuing what Andreas was mentioning before, and what you are also mentioning, Barbara, is that indeed, I mean, the significant difference between the EIC accelerator and other programs is that we are not funding projects, we are really funding companies. And so we want to see that in either cases, and we have different funding options, the companies that are applying, they are able not only to develop the product or the solution that they are working on, but they are also able to bring it to the market and to scale up. This doesn't mean that there is 100% assurance about this. We are expecting, and actually it would be very strange if we wouldn't have a failure rate. So far, we don't have something like this, but the program is also very new when the investment component has been included. This kind of investment programs are defined by high risks, and we are expecting to have this kind of high risk. But nevertheless, we expect the companies to have the ambition and to show that they would have the potential to go to scale up and to go at international level. So mentioning there are several funding options that the companies can apply for, and they can apply in the second step of the application, so they don't have to apply from the beginning, they don't have to choose from the beginning. That they range from the blended finance, as you will see, this is the most common funding options chosen by the companies, and it means that they are asking for the grant component and the investment component at the same time. It doesn't mean that they will be in parallel, but it means that they have already significant risk interest from the investors. Then we have the grant first, which is an option which is chosen by the companies which need more time in order to develop their product or solution. And in this case, there is a milestone. There are two milestones that are being put that are being evaluated during the implementation of the grant. If these milestones are positively evaluated, then the company goes into the start of the due diligence. We have also the option of the grant only. The EIC fund is not has not been created in order to replace the private investors, but in order to crowd in the private investors. So if there are companies that have private investors that are interested and they have significant interest in investing in the company, but nevertheless maybe less they would still need the support for the technological development, because the grant is for the technological development, and the private investors might not be willing to cover the entire amount. That's an option that the companies can use. And we have the investment only option as well, which is available to the companies that have already received a grant from the EIC or from the previous program. So it's quite limited. This option is to offer the companies that have received the grant component the possibility of scaling up, and it's actually it's the reason of raison d'etre for creating the EIC fund in 2020. We realized that the grant component is not sufficient to cover the needs of deep tech companies, which are, as Andrea was mentioning, significant investment needs. And even the market, the private market of the investor in Europe has increased tremendously in the recent years, despite the economic slowdown of the last year. The increase has continued, even though at a slower rate. However, we do see that the deep tech companies, there is still a gap in terms of funding that they can receive from the European investors compared to companies that would be established in US or in Asia. So this was the raison d'etre of creating the European EIC fund. The EIC fund is a private entity which is based in Luxembourg. It works. We work with EIB as investment advisor, and they are acting in line with the investment guidelines. There is a link to the investment guidelines. There is also, apart from this, there is also the technical due diligence. I will explain a bit later what the process is about that is being done. The process, the selection process, it is competitive. The EIC fund invests in companies that came through the pipeline of the EIC accelerator. We do not invest directly. So the companies, they have to apply, they have to choose one of the components, and then the investment process starts. And I will explain later what are the main steps of this investment process. The ticket size varies between 500,000 and 15 million euros. There might be cases where it can go a bit higher than this, but these are very exceptional cases. And we have almost 700 companies that have been selected for support so far, and more than 130 free investment agreements basically signed in the form of direct equity or quasi-equity, which are convertible loans. As I was mentioning, the purpose of the EIC fund, it's not to take out the private investors on the market. On the contrary, to crowd in the investors. And so for us, the investment multiplier is a very important KPI, which we are following very closely. This moment is basically around 3.14 of the EIC money, which is calculated between our investment and the total investment of in a certain round. Also, as Andrea was mentioning, one of the characteristics of the EIC fund is that is a patient investor. It doesn't not act as a lead investor. We need lead investors, qualified lead investors that will lead the round. But we are acting as a patient investor, meaning that we are not going to push the company towards an exit. We understand that deep tech companies, they need longer time to the market, and we hope that through the de-risking, through the grant, but also through the investment component, this will be possible, and we tried, also to achieve the same alignment with the other investors. Now, the investment process after the selection. So after the companies are being selected, in parallel, basically it starts the grant agreement preparation and also the investment process. I would speak especially about the cases where the blended finance cases, which are the most common cases, and there is an initial assessment of the EIB where they are deciding in which bucket the companies would fall. Then there is goes in the, and I will explain a bit I will show the buckets and the difference between them in the next slide. And then there is the due diligence of that is being performed by EIB, the financial and the business due diligence. There are other checks that are being performed by third parties like the KYC, AML. These are regular checks which are performed also by private investors, know your customer, and money laundering, and they are performed in order to ensure that everything is fine for the companies. In addition, we have noticed that since we are dealing with very innovative and very novel technologies, it's necessary to introduce also the tech due diligence. This is not to replace the results of the evaluation, but to add a different layer, as the evaluation has been done in limited period of time, and also on the base of the documents selected. Again, I will show you a bit what goes into the tech due diligence. Then, if everything is fine, the EIB will present an investment proposal, and to the company will discuss with other co-investors. and we're talking about the fortunate case that there are investors that have shown, and they have also as well, they have issued a term sheet. We try to align the term sheets as much as possible to the ones that are being issued by the lead investors. In case there are differences, the differences are in trying to support and obtain, let's say, better solutions for the companies, like making sure that the founders are not completely diluted, that there is an ESOP in place, that that things are in order. But we count significantly on also on the lead investor, on the qualified lead investor. The next step is the investment decision, which is basically taken by the EIC fund manager, and as a change from the beginning, we have an external fund manager. It doesn't significantly impact the companies. It has been selected last year. They are the ones that are taking the decision and approving, or sometimes putting the so-called condition precedents that the companies they have to fulfill in order to receive the investment. So there will be a time between issuing the term sheet and the time that the company will the investment agreement will be issued. Of course, there is also then this time includes also the legal and the legal documentation that is necessary for the lawyers in order to prepare this. But in the end, I mean, it should be, and if there is a lead investor, it should be quite a fast process. And then the companies, they enter in our let's say in the portfolio monitoring part, where we go more in contact with them. They are supposed to provide quarterly reports, like for any investors. In some cases, we might take board seats in cases where our shares are above 10% of the total shares of the issued in that round. But this is not really a necessity. Sometimes we count on the lead investor. Sometimes we nominate observers in the companies. Speaking about the investment scenarios, well, you can see this in the investment guidelines as well. Basically, there are 4 investment scenarios that are following the due diligence. The bucket 0 and the one that I think we never had such a case so far, it's a no-go. It would be in very exceptional cases where the company basically has committed, there were lies or fraud made in the application process. Then the bucket 1, it happens in the cases where during the due diligence, financial or technical due diligence, it's realized that the company is actually much earlier stage than I initially believed, and that the interest of the investors, it will take significant time for the interest of the investors to manifest. And so in this case, the EIB might the fund manager might recommend the transfer from blended, for example, to grant first, and put milestones in the put milestones in the grant agreement. Then the bucket 2 is the most the happiest one, where there are investors that are showing already an interest for the in co-investing alongside the fund. It doesn't mean that it needs to be immediately after the selection. It can happen this in some months, of course, and it depends, of course, on the rhythm, how prepared the company is, how fast is the lead investor, how fast the syndication is being created. It's a quite complex process, and everything is on a case-by-case scenario. We have also the bucket 3 case when there is so much interest from the market that basically the support of the EIC fund is not needed. Then just very briefly, because we'll share the presentation afterwards, this is the in a nutshell a bit the focus of the tech due diligence. It focuses on the technical part of the proposal, and it allows to go more in depth than the evaluations. It's done with external experts with expertise in that domain, and also supports the colleagues from EIB in preparing the investment memo that they are presenting afterwards in the investment committee of the EIC fund. And it focuses on the technological part, but of course it must take into account also the market, the competitors, the supply chain, all the patents, the freedom to operate to some extent. Very briefly, we have, as I mentioned, we have almost 700 companies that have been selected for support from the pilot, which started in under Horizon 2020 in November 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Majority of them, they have been selected for blended finance, and we have a number of them that have been selected for the grant only, meaning that they have they consider that they have the support of the private investors, and more than 130. I think the number is even lower. It's higher now. We have more than 133 companies that have signed already the investment agreement. Here you can see some examples of the companies, and you can see also some examples of Danish companies like Nil Technology, that I'm sure that they are well known to you. Well, of course, Seaborg, I'm not going to present because they will present afterwards what they are doing. We have companies also like MedTrace and more recent addition like Café Bueno. Then just a split of the to show you a bit how the portfolio of the EIC fund is being split. It is an agnostic program, but we do have also there are also the challenges that Andreas was mentioning. A significant number of companies are in the health part, which includes as well the biotech. But we have also a good number of companies in environmental, food and energy, especially if you include also the new materials and the transport and the mobility. So the climate tech companies are also very well represented there. And then we have also the strategic important sectors of the commission, like quantum, semiconductors. They are also represented, and we see actually an increase of the companies in these sectors. In terms of the companies, Danish companies selected for funding, well, Andreas presented the numbers, and also the sectors that they are corresponding to what I was presenting to you, with health being quite well representing, engineering and technology. Well, Nil Technologies is there, climate tech, Seaborg, but also Café Bueno and other companies, health with MedTrace and other companies. These are some of the co-investors of the fund. They are not, it doesn't mean, so we have more than 1,000 co-investors, not in the same round, but also in previous, it can be also in previous rounds. And they range from business angel, family offices, institutional investors, etc. But of course, the CVCs also very important. Of course, the most represented part, it's represented by venture capitalists. And we see some also some Danish funds represented here, Novo Holdings, and I'm not going to pronounce VF because I'm going to butcher the name, so I don't want to do this. Apart from the financial support that I was talking to you about, we are providing to companies that have been selected coaching, have a diverse database of coaches. It is a service for free, and also extensive package of business acceleration services. Here we can see more in depth what we are providing in terms of the co-investment support, supporting the companies also to work on the financial, especially the grant first or earlier stage companies, to still work on the decks and the investment material, but also introducing them to the to investors. We have a number of events. There will be one in Sweden on 1st of May, where some of the companies will be pitching in front of investors. We have also investor roundtables where we try to raise awareness to investors about the EIC fund. This is our co-investment platform. Is just for information, and the monthly newsletter, it's not the same as the newsletter of the agency. It is dedicated to investor. It's a newsletter for the investors, and we showcase every month some companies from the portfolio. And here you can see also the deal flow list. This is actually a part, so as opposed to the co-investment platform, which is of course a closed platform. The deal flow list, it's a public platform, and you can see here the companies that have been selected for funding under the EIC. And with this, I finish my presentation. Thank you very much. And yeah, I can now let me stop sharing. Sorry.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you also to Andreas. We have received a few questions that I think could be relevant to answer live. I can start just by the first one. The presentation will be shared within a few days to the participants, so there won't be a link on the website. So now for the first question. There is like a question from one of the participants that asked if the 4 evaluators that review their first phase application, if it is possible to ask them questions. So what happens normally is that the evaluators, they come with some comments, and now the participant asks, is it possible to ask some question on the question already asked by the evaluators? Andreas, Diana, who would like to take that?
I think I mean, my first answer is no. We cannot ask questions to questions and comments to comments, because otherwise we will never end with this. So I don't know, because the evaluation is coordinated and managed by another sector, another part of the agency. We work together with them, of course, but to be honest, I don't know all the details of the rules there, but I don't think, and Diana, or maybe you, Barbara, you know better, but I don't think we can ask more clarification on the comments that are on the report from the experts.
No, there is no possibility to react. Then there is another question from the participant, but I think there the focus is more on the interview phase. Then I will leave that to Tatiana afterwards, so we can move to another one about the participant asking about the definition of deep tech, that is not a static definition, but more of evaluation based on multiple defined criteria. Is that correct? And if
I think,
yes, you may be emphasized which of the criteria are the ones that are taken into consideration when defining tech.
Well, static definition, there is a definition of deep tech. I think it is rather static than, let's say, dynamic, because we cannot change the definition of deep tech. It is what it is. And I think the elements are the novelty, as I mentioned. So the novelty has to be very clearly described. What is really the added value compared, or the progress, or the disruptiveness compared to the existing solution. So the novelty is one. The other is the timing. So is it something that it is important, urgent to solve societal problems, and which problems? So the problem solving is very important. And then the technology level, because if you have a technology level that is very early, is not for us. If it is a technology level that is very late, so the product is finished and you just want to sell it, is not for us also, because it is too advanced. So it has to be at the right moment of the technology, TRL 5, 6, as I said, the timing and the novelty. I think these are the 3 main elements. Then you have, of course, the solution should be, let's say, safe, AI-based solutions should be respect the person that is using it. I mean, all the rules of safety, etc. So because these are supplementary and accessory, let's say, questions that we ask in criterion excellence. But the 3 main are novelty, timely, related to the problem that needs to be solved, and then the level of the technology.
Thank you, Andreas. Then we move to a question to Diana, and it is which type of financial situation for a company means that grant first is the best option. Diana presented the different funding possibility for the European Innovation Council Accelerator, and one of them is grant first. Diana, would you like to say something about that? Actually, I think something happened because I don't see Diana anymore in the room.
She was disconnected, maybe.
Yeah, probably she's disconnected.
Can
okay,
try to help.
Can you answer that? I can ask. Can you take the question?
Yes, if you can just resume. I mean, summarize
yes.
again the question.
Yes. Otherwise, we can just leave it there, and then there are more financially related questions.
There was a question, I think, about the interviews.
One of the last one is how long it takes on average from the approval of the application to the investment decision.
Yes, this is a very good question. In the pilot, we had a lot of delays in Horizon 2020, and also in the first cutoffs of Horizon Europe in 21, we also had delays because we need to change the system of the due diligence and the partnership for the EIC fund. But now, currently, we're improving very much this process, and what our target and our commitment is to finish the due diligence and to finish, let's say, to go to the term sheet with the company within the 6 months after the end of the evaluation. So within 6 months after the end of the evaluation for a blended finance, the EIB, the European Investment Bank, is committed. It is in its objectives to finish this process in 6 months after this. Diana, if you can confirm or you disconfirm what I say.
Sorry, I was not. I had a bit of problems.
Yeah, I just saw that, but just very shortly, Andreas was answering a question. The question is how long it takes on average from the approval of the application to the investment decision.
But it very much depends on the case. I mean, if the company has, of course, I mean, at the time of there is the lead investor. In that the case, there is the lead investor. It's not, as mentioned, a condition to have the lead investor, but if there is the lead investor, and also if there is a good connection and good the lead investors is willing to share also their due diligence with the colleagues from EIB, the things can go very fast. Indeed, I mean, the target is 6 months, but it can go even faster than this. It very much depends on the case. If there is not the lead investor, then in those cases, we will wait. Wait for the. We can issue a term sheet in majority of the cases, but nevertheless, they will have the condition precedents that will include having the lead investor. And the reason for this is that EIC does not make sense for EIC as a public fund to invest alone in companies, and actually can even damage the reputation of the companies because they can be considered that it is important to show that the market is also interested in investing in the companies.
Thank you very much, Diana. Then there are a few other questions related to your presentation. One is which type of financial situation for a company means that the grant first is the best option? You had a slide where you presented the different type of funding that companies can apply for when submitting an accelerator, and one of them is in fact the grant first. Can you take the question?
Yes, so grant first is usually targeted towards the companies that are, as mentioned, as at an earlier stage. There is so they have spoken already with investors. I think it's important that for all the companies that are applying to EIC, that they try to speak with the investors, and they realize that also their level of technology is nevertheless still early to raise immediate interest from the investors. And so in this case, but it can be in with the support of the grant, it can be in 12 months or it can be in 18 months during the project. In this case, this type of companies would be in a good position to apply for the grant first. They would still have to explain the use of the investment component, and in the grant agreement there will be put milestones that would be evaluated at the time that is foreseen, and in principle, if the evaluation is positive, it will unlock the start of the due diligence by EIB. I hope it answered the question, but each case it's really different. It's very difficult to give a generic answer because the investment part is very situation by situation.
Thank you very much. Then we can move to another one. If you're aware of that, what is the success rate of applicants who does not have commitment from a lead investor at the time of pitch? That would be during the step 3 of the process, of the application process.
I don't think we have this.
Yeah, we don't have this kind of KPI, and as mentioned, it's not also a requisite. Companies must show that they have interacted with private investors, but it's not necessary that they have the commitment of investors that to invest at a specific moment.
But in most of the case, I would say in the majority, yes. As far as I experience, and we have currently a meeting with the European Investment Bank in Brussels from yesterday, and today we finished. I mean, from all the discussions, I also realized that the lead investor should be somewhere around. If it is really far away, out of the radar completely, and the company doesn't have a clue of how to approach the investor, this is not good. And so the majority of the deals we do, the EIB proposes to us, it is with a presence or a visibility or in the time frame of a lead investor to be part of this. If it is not, as Diana said, it will be a provision, a condition in the term sheet to have it within a reasonable time frame. Diana, you agree?
Yes, the investors, they should have a clear understanding of their of the investors. The companies should have a clear understanding of the investors relevant for them, and should have already, as I was mentioning, they should be in contact with these companies, and ideally, indeed, they should have express at least some interest from these companies that if everything goes well at a certain moment in time, these investors would be willing to invest, and if the EIC also invest in the companies, there would be also a catalytic factor for the investors to also invest in the company. So they should have a clear understanding of the investment landscape, which is specific for their case.
Thank you, Diana. There is like a follow-up question. It's actually from another participant that asked again regarding the lead investor. In regards to investment, is the grant and or investment by EIC conditional on getting a private lead investor? And then the participant says, what I understood was the EIC invest in cases where it is not possible to find a private investor because of various conditions. So if you can maybe say a little bit more of this. I think this aspect creates quite often a bit of confusion from the applicants. How much do they need to have a lead investor? How much should they know in advance? And yeah, some what maybe it's also meant with non-bankable or the entire scope of the program of the instrument. If you can say something about that, either Andreas or Diana.
I leave the floor to Diana first. with this
Yeah.
easy question.
That's the gentleman.
No, for the investment component, and actually for all the parts, it is important for the companies to have for all the options. It is important for the companies to have either investors that are already very extremely interested in the company, or that they are in with whom they are in the discussion, with whom the companies they are in the discussions. The EIC does not invest by itself in companies. And the reason for this is that this would lead to a market distortion, and also would lead to a perception of companies not being able to attract private capital. But we have the instruments that I was describing to you earlier, like Grant First, that are there to de-risk the companies that are at earlier stage. Indeed, it's we don't want to invest in cases that are like it's not the purpose of the program to invest in cases that are guaranteed, but we want to invest in cases that they showcase also interest from the private sector. So it is important for the companies to have an overview of the investors, and in ideal case, I mean, it happens often that we have companies that already have like pre-seed or a seed round, and they're coming for a Series A when they need more money from the European Innovation Council. So I think this would be the cases that we are referring to.
Just to complement, so that sometimes the company submit a proposal for a certain, let's say, instrument, Grant First. They decide Grant First, so they know that with a milestone in this Grant First, within 24 months, they will be able to open this the pipeline for the due diligence process and investment after having achieved this milestone. So this is their clear choice. In this case, we are not so picky to have a lead investor, because only the grant runs until really the milestone is achieved, and then we ask the EIB to open the due diligence process within the Grant First. We have other cases where the company has requested for blended, which is reclassified by the EIB into Grant First. And this is more difficult cases where we discuss these days how to process, how to have a standard approach with these cases. But what I would like to say here is that we speak about lead investor, but this is not the only criterion in the due diligence process with the EIB that is taken into account. It is the team as well, very, very important. It is really the ownership of the founders of the company, and there are so many other elements that the lead investor is important, but is not the only one. This is certainly true. But when you enter into a due diligence, the lead investor should be in the discussion with the EIB, and then it is on case by case how urgent it is to bring the lead investor, if it can be brought into the discussion around the table later on. So there are different cases, but definitely you should have an overview, or let's say have contacts with lead investors in your sector in order to be able to address this issue with the EIB during the due diligence. And can happen in a few months, can happen immediately, or give an horizon of this to happen. But cannot be really, I don't have a lead investor, I don't know a lead investor, and this is not the issue. No, it is part of the issue, having lead investor in the radar of the due diligence process.
And maybe just to clarify something about, because maybe the definition of the lead investor, I would recommend to go to the investment guidelines, but basically the qualified lead investor is an investor that has a track record in that sector. So for a health company, it would be in the health sector, and is also an investor which is willing to take the lead of that specific round. So it can be different from one round to another. Doesn't mean that it has to be the only investor in the round. There can be a syndication, and usually there is a syndication of investor. EIC can be one of the investors. the reason of having, I mean, the lead investor is the one that is leading the negotiations with the company, structuring the deal with the company. And it's also very helpful for the valuation purposes, the experience in the market, and also for the follow-on rounds. So it's also from this perspective, with the support, it does not stop at the moment of that round. It should continue afterwards, and a strong lead investor in that sector is able to provide this kind of support. EIC can also provide the support through business acceleration services, and this is also something what a type of service that we are providing also to grant first companies. Actually, they are the main target, where the clarity around the investor in the sectors and the possible lead investor is a bit, let's say, lower than in the cases of blended finance. I hope now it's a bit clearer.
And just very short, but I think everybody understands that when you submit a proposal, you don't have to have a lead investor, and by getting a go from the EIC program, you go in the table with a lead investor, with the go from the EIC, which gives much more confidence to a lead investor to come and to invest to the company with the EIC fund. So we de-risk. We give you the go without the lead investor, but then when you go to the negotiations for the investment, you will have already a strong argument for the lead investor to have already a grant, at least a grant from the EIC.
Thank you very much, Andreas and Diana. Regarding the agenda, the time for question and answer is actually finished now. I would like to ask you if you would have like a few minutes for a few more questions. We can keep them very short. Some of the questions I went through could also be relevant for the presentation that Tatiana will give. So it is up to you. Do you have time for 2 more questions with like
5 minutes for me maximum? Yes. Maximum
yes.
5 minutes.
And for you, Diana, is that also okay? Perfect. And just checking, Tatiana would be fine also for you, right, to start 5 minutes later, and the same Federico. Okay, but then we do like that. We close 11:20 with the question. Then I can, and I really appreciate the way you answer the question, and I think it's very relevant also for the participant that you go in so much detail. So just a few more questions. One of the participants asked, can the private investor be from outside Europe?
Diana?
Well, depends. In principle, yes, of course. I mean, we do have during the KYC. This refers also to existing investors and the investors that would join the round, and we are bound by the rules in this respect of the investment managers. It refers to some restrictions, especially to some countries that are, of course, very limited. It can be for a period of time. In principle, the lead investor can be from outside Europe. It would be on a case-by-case basis. If it's so, the qualification of the lead investor is done at the time of the when the due diligence is being prepared from our side. So it's not like there is a category called lead investors and they pick from that category. No, it is something that the fund is basically qualifying an investor as a lead investor. It does not mean that if an investor is not qualified in a round, for example, it can mean that the EIC will not invest in that round, but it doesn't mean that we would block the round if the company would be getting selected. But it's really on a case-by-case basis. And of course, I mean, we would like to have a good representation of the European investors, as the purpose of the program is really to give the companies a good chance to remain in Europe.
Thank you. And then I think we can take the last question is from an applicant one participant that writes, my company has already raised a pre-seed round. Could we apply for a grant first, or should we apply for a grant plus investment in this case?
It very much depends on the timing. I think both options can be feasible. It very much depends on the timing. If you have just raised the pre-seed round, then it would make sense probably to apply for the grant first, maybe. But it really, I mean, going through the application, you will see also through the questions. For the second phase, you will see also things that will help you in this respect and making the right decision. It's difficult to give a generic answer.
Thank you very much, Diana and Andreas, for being here, for your presentations, and for sharing your knowledge and taking so many questions. So thank you very much
bye-bye
for everything and your contribution. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. But
Bye.
then now I leave the floor to Tatiana. You're welcome to share your presentation, Tatiana. Yes, that's perfect.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me well. Yes. Okay. So I will take maybe 10-15 minutes to present on the topics I've been asked to talk to. And after that, I think it's best if I spend my time on answering the questions, because the success as well as failures are always in the small or not so small details. So just a little bit on my background in general. So I have been the member of EIC investment jury since 2018, since the first jury when there was still accelerator pilot phase. I have joined the first jury by invitation from the European Investment Council, and I have gone through the pilot phase with this product, and been also assisting in various stages when the process was assessed and improved to make it more investment-like. So I have worked on a couple of projects there. And this year I was also asked to join the EIC ambassador groups, and I agreed to do it this year. I have been asked before, but it was just too difficult to allocate enough time for that. On my background, I have actually started to work as an industry in mobile communication, telecommunication industry in Nokia Networks. For 12 years, I was there out of university. And then I switched after doing my MBA to finance investments in technology, and I joined European Investment Fund. And I worked for 5 years in European Investment Fund, investing in European early stage technology funds. So that allowed me to see actually quite a lot of what's happening in Europe in terms of early stage and scale up investments. And last 8 years, I work independently as investment consultant. I have a number of clients who also invest in European early and scale up funds, venture funds, but also looking for a scale up to invest as co-investments. So that's my expertise and experience also with EIC Accelerator. So yeah, I've been a member of a lot of juries since then, remotely and face-to-face in Brussels, and also from my home during COVID. And I have seen quite a lot of juries, met a lot of jury members, and seen a lot of companies succeeding and not succeeding. Okay, so now I need to switch on the slide. Okay, so I basically made my presentation based on a few questions I've been asked to answer. But what can you expect in the interview in general? So EIC Accelerator interview is going to be a final stage of the EIC Accelerator decision process, but I say final because after that there is still a due diligence by EIC Fund, as has been explained by previous speakers. So it's a final stage to move to due diligence. And of course, jury members know that as well. So the companies are then assessed and selected based on the assessment criteria and based also on their fit for EIC fund objectives and their ability then to go through the due diligence process as well. But this is essentially a go decision where the company will be able to receive a grant if it has a grant part, and then move into the equity investment stage. Interviews are conducted as a face-to-face or online, depending on the situation and organization from the decision of from the EIC. And when the company arrives, well, there will be first some briefing for the company on the process. And then the company will have 10 minutes to make its speech. So the pitch is essentially investor pitch. So you are pitching to investors and you're not going to be interrupted during this 10 minutes. And you have to make the best use out of this 10 minutes by yourself. And then jury members get 25 minutes for questions and answers. This is very important stage. This is where jury members will have all their concerns highlighted, and they want this company to address these concerns, these questions, everything what jury members picked up from the application form, from information provided by the company, from the pitch, from the general market understanding concern. So the questions can come about any element of the application and beyond any generic market risks. So this is there is no limitation as such. Then there is another 10 minutes which could for the questions and answers from program managers, from EIB and from EIC fund representatives. They don't always use full 10 minutes, and then it leaves some extra minutes for jury members. And then the jury after that will deliberate and come to the conclusion, and the decision will be as a go or no go. And the go then will receive the grant amount and then will proceed to the due diligence with the EIC fund. So that's the interview. And then who is sitting there at the interview? There's going to be actually quite a lot of people. There will be 5 jury members. There will be a EIC moderator, so coming from European Commission, from EASME agency. Is going to be also a briefer and rapporteur to fill in the report. Now, actually, sometimes one of the jury members takes this role. Then there could be a quality control looking after the process. There will be sometimes an observer who is not allowed to say anything, but just to observe the process and make its conclusions after about the process. And then there might be EIC fund and program manager representatives. But the key people are 5 jury members who are going to listen to your pitch and who are going to evaluate your proposal, and who are going to make essentially the decision. So all jury members read all the proposals. So that's quite a lot of work. But every jury member has read your proposal. One of the jury members will be assigned to read your proposal in more details and maybe sort of investigate a little bit more, but I think from my experience, all jury members take their duty very, very responsible, and I have spent a lot of time on reading each proposal, on also researching if I have some gaps in the market knowledge, researching these areas where it's needed, and so jury members come prepared. Then. Who are the jury members? Sorry, wrong. Yeah, so EIC jury members, who are they? First of all, they are chosen by European Investment Council, by EASME agencies. They are invited. They are chosen based on the recommendations of various investors, existing jury members, successful startups. So it's a careful selected process. EIC evaluates jury members for their work, and some jury members are replaced. There is also regular rotation in the juries. So In all my juries, I always have worked with different people, new people. Of course, I meet a few jury members, but it's never the same jury. All of them are investment professionals in various roles. Some are more senior, some are more junior, which is good because it gives a different perspective on the companies. And some are business angels, but all of them have a quite good investment background, and that's what they are for. They need to provide an investment expertise on essentially an investment decision making. There are a lot of expertise present. Normally, jury is 5 people with complementary experience. So all the juries are composed to sort of cover different areas of their expertise and relevant expertise for the jury. There's going to be a technology expertise, sector expertise, there's going to be business development expertise, financial competence, and also entrepreneurial competence as well, because it's also very important to have a entrepreneurial experience, and we always have it. If you want to know who is currently the pool of jury members, I provided a link, and you can look at the background of those people and their LinkedIns. But I have met a lot of very, very competent, recognizable people in this list, and it's a very experienced group of people. Now, how to best prepare for the EIC Accelerator interviews? From my experience, you need to understand that interview is not just yet one more formal step to come through the process. Actually, this is a step to come through the process. Everything before is a formal process, and this is the key decision step in the process, and you need to take it as such. I have seen many companies are not doing that, and maybe then wasting their opportunity or time. Second important point is you are pitching to investors in the interview. You should come there prepared to pitch to investors. This is also very important because I think some companies not quite understand this step as well. Third important point, successful element, you need to understand what EIC Accelerator is looking for. This is a strategic fund launched by European Commission, and it has strategic objectives, and it looks for high risk, high impact, strategic important innovations which require significant funding. So honest self-assessment on your fit is important as well. Then there were speakers before me going through quite detailed assessment criteria. So it is important that company, when coming to interview, will understand very well what they will be assessed on and prepare accordingly. Because this is what jury members are going to be concentrating on, because this is a part of our job. We will have to assess the company against those criteria and assess it in the report and make our decision based on those criteria. So the best approach when you are applying for EIC Accelerator is to actually self-assess yourself before that, or maybe find some investor who would willing you to give feedback on these elements, and then see where you need to do more work so you come prepared for this step. So then a second element is the question and answers part of the interview is very important, because pitch you can structure any way you like, the way you can present your benefits, your strengths, and maybe downscale or hide your weaknesses or problems. But question and answers is where everything will be sort of digged through and looked through and turned around and questioned. So this, you have to be ready to cover let's say almost every aspect of your company. So you have to be able to answer any question on your business plan. there are 5 jury members. They read your proposal. They have their background. They have their own market understanding, and they want to address their concerns during the jury. So when you come to interview, bring relevant people. So bring the key people who are in your team will be able to help you. You have, I think, allowed 3 people. So think carefully who is coming. Here I will be very direct, but sometimes, you know, some companies bring some junior female employee just to show that they are gender equality, but then this employee has no say in the process. This also sometimes looks very weird. So bring key people who will answer all the questions, and these people need to be relevant there. Understand your financial assumptions. You know, the scale up plans, of course, you know, companies are coming there to look for scale up funding. So of course, business models do not have 100% of the answers. And of course, your commercialization strategies relies on assumptions, but what are these assumptions? What are your financial assumptions? What are your market assumptions? Why are these assumptions are made? You have to be able to explain. I have seen many companies failing there because they just think that this is not a very important part. They make some consultant to the business plan, the revenue projections, scale up projections, and then they are very surprised when the questions are being dissected, their financial plans being looked at, and they cannot answer any questions. It looks sometimes very, very weird. Then again, EIC Accelerator looks for companies who can scale up significantly. And of course, it implies that EIC Accelerator round funding will not be the last round. It might be first, might be second, but it definitely maybe not the last. So what are your financing plans? How much you have prepared? Have you talked to any investors? What was investor feedback? What kind of investors did you talk to? Did you talk to strategic investors? Did you talk to venture investors? Did you talk to maybe corporate investors, to other type of investors, family offices? Where are you gonna find additional funding needed? Do you understand the process? Okay, you don't have to have an investor with you, but you have to at least be able to demonstrate that you know how to raise money, or you are able to convince investors. So this is an important step, because if I sit on energy jury, and sometimes companies will require during their full cycle to succeed 50 to 100 million. And if you come to interview and say, I need 15 million from you, and you cannot answer where you're going to get another 85, not tomorrow, but within next, you know, first year, second year, fifth year, and then year number 7, it's very difficult then to understand how you're going to succeed. So I think you have to think it through few years ahead also. Not answers, but at least have a plan. Another critical point is nobody is perfect. Every company has risks, a certain level of risks, otherwise it wouldn't be an early stage company. So there is always some risks, some shortcomings, and the best strategy, no need to hide them. They will be found out. Don't hide them, tackle them, you know, explain if questions comes up. Provide the risk plan. Maybe, for example, your team has some lack of some expertise, and you know it. Well, instead of pretending like the problem doesn't exist, why don't you provide the plan, the hiring plan, you know, and maybe a candidate profile you are looking for, or maybe you already spoke to some people. So you don't have to be perfect, but you have to have a good plan. So that will then give the jury members the confidence that you are aware of your own strengths, of your own weaknesses, and you know how to address all these risks and weaknesses in front of you. So then I think this is all, but I would like to maybe just to go through a little bit more. So I don't have a slide for this, but I just would like to speak maybe a few more issues, elements. which I met as a jury member, where like typically more discussions, more challenges come up during the interview for the companies because they are maybe not prepared sufficiently to this. So IPR position, this is important element, and it will be looked at. So so you have to present your IPR strategy very clearly, and application right now requires you to do this, but you know, for example, FTO analysis, please make it properly. Some companies choose to just self-assess. It's fine, but if there are some unclarities in your IPR position, a legal opinion is important. It shows also that you are serious. Be also very clear, what's your plans, how many patents, where you need to file, what's your strategy. Some companies are not prepared for this very well, and this is where it gives concerns, especially in the deep tech area, to jury members, that the company doesn't possess a full picture there, and then they are being asked to come back. Executive management team. So team in general is important element of success of every company. If you have fantastic team, maybe you have some questions unanswered, jury might give you a credit, benefit of the doubt that you will tackle these questions. So your team, the way you present it, is very important. So executive management team, its composition, scale up skills, what is the team dynamic in the team, how the decisions are made. It's all very important. I have seen too many companies when it's one-man show, where the founder is technically very good, but seems to be unable to delegate decisions, business decisions, scale up decisions, wants to control everything, maybe not willing to hire extra expertise. These are concerning questions. These are the same questions the other investors would be concerned at. So this is something you need to have a honest look and prepare. You don't have to have everything on board. You know, you don't have funding, so you can't hire expensive sales executive, but you can talk to somebody and see if your company can actually attract these people if you would have had the funding. So that's already a big step. Okay, financing plans, I already also spoke. You know, do you have a long-term financing plans? Does your company understand how much money you will need going forward? Where is the risks here? Have you talked to other investors? What is their feedback? Shareholding structure. This is also very important. Look at your shareholding structure. Is it actually ready? Is it ready for additional investors? Is it ready for large-scale investor? What other investors will say? Do you have some additional challenges in shareholding structure you need to look at and maybe prepare a plan for that? So there are a couple of sometimes cases where shareholding structure is too messed up and the companies are not really realizing it or don't want to deal with this, but it makes it very difficult for this company to grow further. So EIC Accelerator is not the money to solve these problems. These problems needs to be solved before. Then business model, commercialization strategy. How solid is this? Like, how many assumptions have you tested? Has any market sort of testing been done? Any kind of de-risking here? This is all very important. So lack of transparency on the way you answer questions normally also gives rise to concerns and make people ask more questions there. So be transparent. It's okay to not to be perfect and have shortcomings, but you need to be able to explain if you, let's say, decided for certain decisions, you need to explain them. Be honest to yourself. Are you the company which is fit for accelerator, EIC Accelerator objectives? Are you ready to grow that and scale up significantly? So that's important. I think this is all what I would like to sort of present as a jury member, but I am here for your questions also now. I don't know how much time we have for the questions.
I think we can take maybe like 5-10 minutes for the question, if that's okay with you, Tatiana. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for your presentation. We have looked at all the data, both in Europe, but also in Denmark. And the Danish company are extremely successful after step 1. They are also quite successful after step 2. And then, I mean, we can look, of course, according to the average in EU or the country where Denmark tried to compare itself, that we still do fine, but there is a drop in the success rate from step 2 to step 3. And the aim of Tatiana's presentation was really like to try to get you prepared for the interview so that you are aware of who are part of the interview panel. They are not public official working in a ministry or the commission, but they are really people that know how the investment should and could happen. So there are a few questions in the question and answer session. I can start by one, actually, Tatiana, that we got already from some early on, and I left that to you because I think it relates to your work as a jury member. Here is a company that has applied for accelerator twice. They got to the interview phase both times, and then they received a no-go. And the no-go was based on a lack of evidence from a perspective of the lead investor willingness to invest either alongside the EC or a later stage. So according to the rule within the European Innovation Council Accelerator, what it is written in the investment guidelines, they are in the situation now where they feel like, how can we accommodate the jury comments in the best way? They had already some letter of intent from investor that had shown commitment. That in those letters, there was not indicated an amount, so that could probably be something that they could address. But would you like to say something about the question, Tatiana?
Yes, I can say something. Of course, without knowing all the details of the case, it's very difficult to answer because, I mean, each case is unique in its aspect. I think the best way, if I would be the company, I would first try to understand what kind of investor I'm bringing on board. You know, there are sometimes some strategic investors which are challenging for others. So maybe there was a strategic investor with a reasonably small amount, which would satisfy the investment in the first step to co-invest with the IC fund, but maybe it will block subsequent investment because it would then company would be almost like captive, you know, or it would only attract the same investment from the same investor. So that might be one risk. Maybe this investor is from the competing technological continents. You know, European Union is striving for the technological independence. So if it's going to put 15 million, for example, into the equity into certain company, the last thing it wants is to be acquired by you know, US technological giant or the, you know, Chinese technological giant or move to US. You know, I don't imply anything, but I'm just thinking out loud, you know, what could be the issue. So I think the first step I would do, I would look at my financing plan and see if I have this kind of concerns there. Will this investor pass the KYC also, you know, because all the co-investors need to be able to pass KYC in Europe. That's another concern. Maybe that's the case. That's a concern which was not addressed. So I think this composition of investors and maybe the investor is taking too large share for some specific conditions. It's difficult to say, of course, right? But perhaps there is some sort of underwater rock we don't see where juries had concern. So I think you maybe need to self-assess there one more round and see if you can address this. And in this case, I would just go to another investor and ask, like, if you would have these co-investors, what would be your concerns? and then hear them, because I think this is what is a little bit missing in some of the applications, that these companies maybe have never talked seriously to investors or have not taken their concerns seriously on board. Of course, EIC is a strategic investor, so it has maybe additional kind of strategic angle here in concerns, but in financial kind of investment approach, it's as good as private investors. So I think you need to look at this. I have seen also many times in the market where entrepreneur is too quick to bring like some investor without acceptance from co-investors, which is maybe solve the problem of today, but for the next rounds it's become very difficult. So so maybe the valuation wasn't right, maybe something else wasn't discussed, which makes it difficult to execute the next stages of financial plan. So there may be many elements, but yeah, my recommendation is to assess it yourself first to understand what could have been the concern.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. And as for also some of the other sorry, aspects that you covered before, it seems quite important that companies really try to assess themselves. So even if it's like a one-man company startup, try to look at other expertise or people that you would employ in the company if funding should be there, and try to get prepared. I think we can take another question. We received that before. I don't know if you can take it. It is related to the timeline. So the question is, if you apply for blended finance, can you start the grant activities before you sign an agreement with the fund?
Yes, if you apply for blended finance and you are successful in the interview, you receive the grant right away. So you need then to simply sign a grant agreement with the ASME agency, and I understand the process is relatively quick. And then the EIC fund due diligence will move in parallel. So it will be like two independent processes, and on how long the actual EIC fund due diligence for equity might take, it depends, I think, also on many factors. For example, on how fit you are for due diligence. You know, if all your documentation is ready, all the information, it probably will take faster. And then also maybe EIC fund will think that, you know, you can start with a grant and then they will make a due diligence after 6 months. You have you know, used the grant to de-risk maybe some elements. So there, I think, is already a little bit like an investment process. Also, when it might also have a impact, you know, kind of timing impact. For example, if you say that, okay, I want to have a grant for that. Let's say I will do 6 months, some trials. And after that, I will go to early stage investors and I will raise a round with them. And that's where I need EIC equity funding. So then the EIC fund maybe will think to align with your timeline on this as well. So timing, I think, is, but I would say you should probably take around like minimum 6 months to go through the EIC process, EIC fund process, because, you know, they will need to do due diligence. They will need to issue a term sheet, you know, there is negotiations. So I would say, yeah, probably it's gonna take like 6 months.
Thank you, Tatiana. You have answered also some of these like follow-up questions. So for companies applying for blended finance, does the upfront payment of the grant have to wait until the EIC fund have finished their due diligence? No. Yeah.
No. Grant you get right away, but of course you have to assure that you have the grant co-financing ready, so that because I think grant needs to be co-financed by the company by 30%. So if you have to have this one ready, so the grant agreement will be separate from the equity agreement.
Perfect. Then I think we can take the last one. Is there still funding enough money to fund approximately 50% of companies invited to pitch, or does the money for investment mean that less than 50% are funded?
Well, that's a difficult question for me to answer, because this is normally, as a jury members at each jury, we are informed how many companies are, you know, selected, how much funding there is. in general, like in total, and what kind of percentage of companies are expected to be funded. But this is difficult because, you know, it also will depend on the ticket sizes. You know, if we have like, let's say 3 perfect unicorns who wants big tickets and everybody believes in them, then of course there might be less in terms of companies. It might, so I think sometimes the calculation is done not by number of companies, but the total amount of funding sought by these companies. So that's this kind of assumptions, half the companies will be funded, is not correct. It's based on the funding amounts. So if you have, let's say, a few companies which require and are successful in the large amounts, then it will be much less for the rest. So.
Yes, but thank you very much, Tatiana. Thank you very much for your presentation and for your time and for sharing your experience. And I'm sure that now the applicants will be better prepared when they arrive at the interview stage. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Good luck to everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. But now I give the floor to the last speaker, that is Federico Puente Espel from Seaborg. Seaborg has received funding, if I remember correctly, Federico, it was last year that they got a European Innovation Council accelerator. But Federico, I now give the floor to you. You have already shared your presentation and you are in slide showed mode, so please.
It is in slideshow mode?
Can see your slides perfectly. Yeah.
Or you can see the slides?
Yeah, I can see the slide. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Barbara. Distinguished participants, good morning. And thank you so much for your time, for this presentation. I would like to just briefly give you practical experience on how to best prepare to submit your proposal to the call, our lessons learned, and the experience that we have had so far with the EIC Accelerator. First of all, of course, I hope that all participants, organizers, and their close ones are well and healthy. A profound and sincere appreciation to Barbara and the Danish regional EU offices and their most valuable consideration. As well, a great recognition to the EIC and the framework Horizon Europe for their exceptional work and great support. My presentation will consist on how to best prepare your proposal, the process, and I would like to finalize with some key thoughts. Let's start from the beginning. How to best prepare your proposal? Well, for us, very straightforward. We needed a strategy. And this strategy was broadly contained within 3 pillars. Planning, like planning the step at where we were, planning the step and activities that we wanted to accomplish with the project, and even further, looking ahead of the project as a company. As some of the previous presenters have mentioned, you don't apply in this call as a project, you apply as a company. The second thing, of course, was to organize. To organize how to best prepare this proposal. Organize in a way that you strategically take each step, identify the needs, and prepare in the best possible way. And the last part is the execution. For those of you who like sports, imagine it's like training the whole week. And then your competition, any competition of any sport is during the weekend. If for any reason you are not performing during the competition, the execution is not working. So besides that your preparation, your training is the best, the execution has to be as well perfect. For each pillar, it is essential that you answer the following questions. Basically, the 5 basic questions: what, how, when, why, and who. These questions are the 5 basic questions that you basically need for any project. And for this proposal, takes a lot of importance. But let's stop for a moment and let's talk about the preparation itself. Preparation is key. We need to prepare the proposal, just like we prepare exams, projects, and so on. And the best way is that to play any game, you need to first learn the rules of the game, and that's to play. If you want to win, you need to master them. In practical terms, what I mean by this is that what we did, we read all the documentation available regarding the code, regarding the website. We actually participated in the very first official EIC accelerator call. I believe there was a pilot one before us, but in the one that we participated was the very first one. So we read all the documentation, and not only the documentation, we watched the webinars that at that time were launching. And I'll show you some examples later. And then after that, we went into the rules and regulations that are quite or much longer. This to understand first, how will our proposal, our project, our company will be benefited, what could be asked, and how to best prepare for that. In the following slide, my main takeaway is that you need to take one phase at a time. It's always extremely important to take one phase at a time. At the time that we participated, I remember we had 2 opportunities, so to say. That means that 2 opportunities to submit in case one of them were not go. We always try to push any not go the furthest we could. And we did that by focusing on each of the phases. So as I was mentioning, one phase at a time, phase by phase. Each phase is unique. It has different aspects that have to be evaluated. You do not arrive to the championship game without qualifying any of the previous rounds. So this is extremely important. Look at each phase at a time. I have seen sometimes people that ask us, since we were lucky and proud to have won the EIC award, the blended award. And they always ask us about the second phase, the third phase, without even having started the very first phase. There's no way they will pass, or they will waste all their chances on the very first one. The very first, or any, in any means, is as important as the next one, because you will not arrive to the next one if you have not passed it. So what do I mean by matching the call with your proposal? We start understanding the framework, even going further one step backwards before the call. So not the specific call. We went to the framework program, Horizon Europe. We started identifying what were the main key points for or part of the framework, because the framework has many pillars. In this one, for us was extremely important to understand what they were asking, and was also extremely important to understand how our proposal will actually help, support, benefit any of these key points of the funding program. We also then went to the EIC specifics. For us, it was extremely important to be sure that we were in the, clear accelerator. Because of course, as you might have heard from our previous presenters, there's different calls within the EIC pillar. And those depends on the TRL levels and so on and so forth, and they are all different. So we went to the accelerator. Once we were there, we start focusing on our strategy. We made a self-evaluation of our company. The best way we did that is, in this case, we took the key impact pathways of the framework. Again, we were always playing with the framework and the core, so not just the core. We try to answer or to identify, more than answering, how each of these key impact pathways was benefited or not by our product, by the actions of our company. And we match these ones with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. All this on an exercise to clearly indicate the benefits of our company in all the pillars of sustainability, including the economic ones. As you can see, many of these have to do with the financial wealth and so on. We identify, once we went a little bit more specific, we went into the core aspects. In these core aspects, we start getting and understanding what we wanted. We start understanding if we qualified as an SME. For us was extremely critical because of our product to see the benefits of the call, because it's a call that is unique in the sense that it provides grant plus equity funding. And the equity funding, of course, was extremely important for us. One of the aspects that was also crucial for us was the TRL levels. We assess our technology from many different aspects to check if we could qualify to apply, in order to just apply to the code, starting from this TRL 5 or 6. The type of funding, as it has been explained by the previous presenters very clear, I will just mention, we went always by the combined funding. The way we did it is that we first require the grant first, with the option to later ask for the equity part. We did that because in our case, the only way that it was making sense. That's why I was telling you it's so important to understand the call. The petition had to go for equity. Otherwise, the petition for grant was not making sense at all. When we went to the video, again, like the previous presenter was mentioning, we understood exactly the rules for the video. I remember that at phase one, of course, we had the questionnaire, we had the slide deck, and the video. For each of them, detail was of the essence. Basically, the video, the most difficult part for us was the presentation, because the presentation, of course, you cannot change it once it's made, but also to transmit in a very short way, in 3 minutes, the video. It made us understood that we had to play with the 3 cards that you are given. The questionnaire, so is where you explain the tech part of your proposal. The video talks much more about the team, and if you have the capabilities, if your team is prepared to take this engagement. And then the presentation, of course, summarize everything. When we actually watch all the webinars from the EIC, just as an example, and that's why I'm telling you that it's so important to first take a very big dive into the information that is available, identify where everything is written, make notes. You have to know the call by heart in order to best prepare your proposal. And this is just an example of what we were doing when we were preparing the proposal. In the case of the short application, we answer once at a time what was going to be assessed. We took it, as mentioned before, one phase at a time. Let me show you, for example, what I was telling you about the key pathways and SDGs. This is how our very first slide on the pitch looks like. As you can see, we had the name of the project, the acronym. But the most important thing, we play with the size of the SDGs to try to, since we were not going to be present, and hopefully we will be present when we were pitching our company in the interview, visually with the size of the SDGs and the way that they were being affected. In phase 2, the most important advices that I could extend you is that familiarize very well with the platforms. There will be different platforms. The most important thing here is not what you introduce, but how it's presented. Because remember, it's not always what you say, but how it's received. That's why I was mentioning at the beginning these 5 basic questions. The what is extremely important, and the how is as important as the what. In these platforms, you have to prepare the work packages. They need to make sense, and you need to know how to balance the whole budget that you will be receiving and the actions that you will be carrying out. This refers to the human resources that you have or the financial. If the financial and human resources are not available, you have to identify those points, those gaps within your project, and hoping that the grant will fulfill those gaps and in what way they will be fulfilled. Also, it is extremely important that your proposal at this phase 2 has deliverables and milestones, clear and tangible. How can the progress of your company be measured? So perhaps you will have some indicators. Each field will be different, but indicators are key. As mentioned before, we are talking about the EIC accelerator. They are looking for unicorns. They are looking for companies that could scale up. This is not a call for research and development. It will help at a different TRL level. You have to show your novelty, the state of the art. Have you evaluated the market? How are you assessing the market from the very beginning, the feasibility? Will it be a game changer? How will it change? How is it computed, comparing against other competitors, against other parts of the world? The EIC stands for the European Innovation Council. How will this benefit Europe? Remember, each key is essence. So it's clear that we want to find European companies, and how will that, of course, benefit Europe and the world? You have to also have for phase 2 the budget, cost, expenses expected and unexpected. When I'm talking about unexpected, just imagine in the last years when we applied, that was before the unfortunate geopolitical situation. And since then, inflation has just rise unexpectedly. How would you take care of these unexpected issues when it comes to salaries, equipment, so on? Measure the progress on that and the advances on the development. As I was telling you, you have to identify and mitigate the strategies. Identify the risk and mitigate the strategies. Understand what it will be assessed. And what I can tell you, and I'm extremely thankful, is that your best friend and the person that helped us the most was the National Contact Point. And I cannot stress enough how thankful we are towards Ms. Barbara. Thank you. At the interview point, it has already been explained in detail. What the only thing else I could add is that it's made by the investors, as said. They will ask, so ask yourself, is my company a good company where I will invest? Imagine they want, you have to transmit confidence. You have to transmit that you understand the market, that you understand the situation, that you are actually prepared to deal with risks, to have the mitigation strategies in place, to just use them when needed, because it will not be easy. I don't know if you have heard about the elevator rule, but basically you have 30 seconds with the CEO of the company. And within those 30 seconds, you will use them to sell yourself or the product that you have. So basically, in this elevator rule, you have 10 minutes to transmit and convince all the parts of the jury. Again, the jury will be investors. So try to pick up quite carefully what you are going to say. Be careful with your words. Prepare them. Practice, practice, practice. As well with the time. Time is of the essence. Choose your points carefully. And also choose who is going to say what. And if it's not finished, who will actually help to finish that part. And again, with the time, it's extremely important when you have 10 minutes. The key takeaways of this presentation. First of all, don't look at the money, don't look about the grant, the equity part. is this call for you or not? If it does, you have to match it perfectly. First of all. Secondly, one pace at a time. Don't think about the final without even playing the plays in the playoffs. The TRL is key. This is not for R&D. This is to go to market. Be quite clear, very precise and concise. Each part of the sections will have at the most 1,000 characters. Don't repeat yourself. Show how professional you are. Show the benefits and advantages of your company. Relate to the EU, United Nations key ways and sustainable development goals. Even further, I mean, for example, in our case, we were focusing on energy. And from the very beginning, our product was focused on mitigation of climate change, eradicating energy poverty, and providing energy security. But the point of providing energy security at that time was not as clear as now, when unfortunately we are going through a geopolitical unfortunate situation. During the interview, they will see if your team has the capability to perform. This is extremely important because people will give you money, and especially now with inflation, money is scarce. Commercialization, as mentioned by the previous speaker, they want to see the scale-up potential of the company, the deployment of the company. Be professional and show that you have a vision for the short, medium, and long term, and to de-risk that. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope I have explained in a clear way our points, and I will be very happy to try to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Federico, for your presentation. We haven't received any question in the Q&A section, but I think your slides were very informative and you took the participant and also me throughout the entire process from applying, the added value of applying the financing type that you have chosen, and how the company can be assessed. I think that your presentation, together with the one that we got from Tatiana, are very good in helping the participant. Actually, we just received a question. I just read it, and then we can see who can answer to that. When you applied for the European Innovation Council, was there a coach add-on? Did you choose it? That it's for you, Federico.
Thank you. When you pass phase 1, in phase 2, within the platform, the EIC extends a great support of actually providing you a coach. You have to do some exercise where you, of course, list some keywords, and then a list of potential coaches will appear. You read their profiles, you have to choose several of them. And yes, we got a coach provided by the EIC that was extremely helpful, because first of all, to understand if we were extending our message in a clear way.
I have a follow-up on the coach part, Federico. How long time did it go before you got a coach?
As soon as we passed phase 1, it can go as faster or slower as the participant moves. Why? Because we have to fill a list of keywords. We have to then select within a very long pool of potential coaches. So the more precise the keywords are, the better. Otherwise, you will end up with a longer pool. And of course, you need to have the time to look through that pool. We select a few of them, and then we went through the interview. So we try to do it as fast as possible, because here the most important thing is that when you're applying to submit the phase 2, there's a fixed deadline. You need to always consider that you will submit it at least with 2 months in advance, because in case you have a no-go, at least to have the chance to change it, so you don't have to wait until the next one. So you have to be quite strategic on this point. So we tried to move as fast as possible. We were lucky that it took a couple of weeks to get it, and we were also very clear on what we were looking for, what we were expecting, if we were asking for something possible, if she or he could help us on that.
Thank you very much, Federico. But if there are no more questions to Federico, I think that we could close this webinar. I would like to thank you very much, all the presenters. You, of course, Federico, thank you very much for your presentation. Then also Tatiana for our presentation, and Diana and Andreas that have to leave. And then I would like also to thank you very much, Siri, and the other people in the other Danish European Regional Office that have contributing in designing this webinar and trying together with me to identify topics that could be relevant for you. So thank you very much to Siri, and thank you very much also to the other regional office that are not here present in the panel today. But thank you, Siri. As I said before, the slides will be shared with all the participants, and then I think in a few weeks, the recording will be made available online on the website of the ministry, and it is in the same page where you access the registration form. So Siri, I don't know if you would like to add something, but from my side, I can say you are welcome to contact me anytime if you have questions. If I can address them, I will. If there are questions that could be relevant for the regional office to work on with you, I will try to put you in contact with them if you don't know them already in advance. But yes, so just let us know what are your issue, question, challenges, and then we will try to address them either through a webinar or by answering your question. Siri, if you would like to add something.
No, thanks, Barbara. I think it's been informative.
Thank you, thank you, Siri.
And thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Federico. But then I wish you all a wonderful day. And again, let me know if there is something. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.